In November of 2020, on the breathtaking Pyrenees Mountains, one hiker embarked on a solo hiking adventure. What began as a daring exploration turned into a life-or-death situation. Esther, who was always one to hike mountains solo, vanished without a trace. Months and months passed, but she never returned. Esther Dingley, a British hiker and blogger with some serious experience under her belt, had always been the type to be up for an adventure. At 37, this Durham native was all about exploring what was literally around the next mountain bend. However, things took a shocking turn on one fateful trek in the Pyrenees Mountains, along the border between France and Spain, in November of 2020. Esther, who was always one to conquer mountains solo, vanished without a trace, causing ripples of disbelief and concern among the hiking community. The Pyrenees, this crazy massive mountain range, draws a line between France and Spain, extending almost 310 miles from the Cantabrian Mountains all the way up to Camp de Creux on the Mediterranean coast. These mountains reach some serious heights, with the peak of Veneto reaching 11,168 feet. In the mix, you'll find the tiny country of Andorra cozied up between the Spanish and French borders. Historically, this range has played a big role in the territories of the Crown of Aragon and the Kingdom of Navarre, both of which extend across its vast expanse. So, you could say these mountains are steeped in history, quite literally. Nestled within this mountain range is the village of Benasque. It's like the Spanish version of Chamonix, teeming with an alpine charm that's hard to resist. When winter rolls around, it becomes a ski paradise, attracting downhill and cross-country enthusiasts from all corners. Summers, on the other hand, are dominated by hikers and mountain bikers looking to conquer the area's abundance of 3,000-foot peaks. Among these peaks, Mount Tenedo reigns supreme. It's like the ultimate trophy for climbers, ski mountaineers, hikers, and even the not-so-well-prepared tourists who flock to the Pyrenees. Of course, when you mix a diverse crowd with challenging terrain, it's a recipe for accidents. Take, for example, one hectic weekend in August, when the Guardia Civil, who are among the best rescue services in Europe, carried out a mind-boggling 21 rescues in Benasque alone. But when it came to Esther Dingley, this was a whole different story. Despite her experience and familiarity with the area, she disappeared and remained missing for a long time, despite extensive search efforts by specialized rescue teams for both France and Spain. Esther had been a regular face around Benasque and was known for her infectious enthusiasm. Many locals had met her, and fellow hikers even recalled running into her on the trails. On the day of her disappearance, her van was found exactly where she left it in Benasque. Her enthusiasm had often found her attempting to join local climbing trips, although she was gently turned down due to her lack of the right equipment. But that autumn Sunday, her adventure took a turn no one saw coming. On November 22, 2020, it was an intense day of solo hiking when Esther Dingley made it to the summit of Pic de Sauvegarde, a towering 2,300-foot mountain. It was right there, on top of that peak, that she captured a final selfie and sent it to Dan Colgate, her long-term partner. Meeting during their student days at Oxford's Wadham College, Esther Dingley and Colgate became inseparable companions. In 2014, they took on the adventurous life, traveling Europe and documenting their experiences in a blog while living in a camper van. Their journeys weren't without hurdles as both battled serious health issues. Colgate struggled with depression and a near-fatal bout of necrotizing fasciitis from a surgery, while Dingley was hampered by chronic fatigue syndrome. That selfie image she sent to Colgate represented the last visual testament of her journey, frozen in time against the backdrop of the Lucanier region of southwest France. Here's where things get a bit murky. As the sun sets at 6 p.m. in those parts around that time of year, the route Esther decided to take next remains a bit of a mystery. The location of her final resting place, however, suggests she crossed the border into France after conquering Salvaguardia. This decision most likely led her through the Portillon de Benasque, a mountain pass that opens up to France. She would have then moved west on the French side, planning to loop back to Spain and her parked van through another mountain passage, the Porte de la Glare, or Porto de la Glera. Before she went radio silent, Esther sent a few more texts to Colgate. One of them read, "I'm on a coal peak, so can't stop for too long. Can't wait to read all your messages. Love you very much. XXX. Having a really good time." It was like she was soaking up every bit of the adventure. In her final message, she hinted at a detour into France and possibly stopping by at Refuge Venasque if they had a winter room open. That was it. No one heard from or spotted Esther after that. When Esther failed to check in, Colgate sounded the alarm on November 25th, mere 48 hours after her last message. A full-blown search effort kicked off, involving the police from both France and Spain. They combed the area from the air and on foot, even using sniffing dogs, but came up with nothing. Esther had vanished without a trace, leaving everyone literally scratching their heads in confusion. Things got a bit more complicated when a few days later, a thick blanket of snow settled in, obscuring the terrain until May 2021. The search operations had to be called off, giving rise to a swirling storm of rumors and theories about what could have happened to Esther. Among the numerous theories put forward, French Captain Jean-Marc Bordenaro suggested in December that Esther might have voluntarily disappeared due to possible relationship troubles with Colgate. Villagers chimed in with their own speculation about a fairy tale relationship that might have hit a rough patch. Apparently, Colgate was looking to settle down, while Esther was still excited about their nomadic life. Bordenaro even stated that Esther was keen on continuing her life of traveling and hiking, while Colgate seemed a bit weary of their on-the-go lifestyle. This narrative was somewhat supported by fellow hiker Laura Adamaitiate, who recalled Esther expressing uncertainty about her relationship with Colgate when they met in a shelter days before her disappearance. However, this theory was quickly dismissed by Colgate. In his statement to the Daily Mirror, he mentioned that, like any other couple, they had different preferences, but always discussed them openly. Esther's mother, Rhea Bryant, also chimed in, stating that running away to continue traveling solo was totally out of character for Esther. Colgate had his own theory, suggesting in a 23-page document that Esther might have been kidnapped or accidentally killed by a hunter or wild animal. He noticed a significant number of hunters in the area during his search for Esther and feared a possible unfortunate encounter, but even he acknowledged the lack of evidence to support this theory. He also pointed out that if Esther had an accident, it must have been an immediate one, preventing her from using any form of shelter. This theory was partially supported by a French investigator, who suggested that Esther might have fallen from a rocky peak, as her belongings were found scattered along a wall at the bottom. The French prosecutor investigating Esther's disappearance later confirmed this theory, stating that the British hiker likely fell nearly 100 feet to her death while traversing the Pyrenees alone. This tragic conclusion, however, did not stop Colgate from continuing his search for his partner of over 20 years. He walked 700 miles searching for answers, a testament to his resolve in the face of heartbreaking loss. 9 grueling months since Dingley went AWOL during her solo mountain trek. As it turned out, the painful culmination of this epic, mountain-based mystery was yet to come. It arrived on a Tuesday when Dingley's partner of 2 decades, the guy who'd been with her through thick and thin, made a startling discovery. Colgate found her body, putting a full stop to a nerve-wracking search that spanned weeks that felt like years. This tragic scene took place at the base of a cliff, of all places, a location that had been in chilling proximity to the Porte de la Glire Pass. This pass was already linked to the case when another mountain goer found a fragment of a skull there just a few weeks earlier. A grim and shocking find indeed. It's not exactly the kind of thing one imagines stumbling across while exploring the great outdoors. With Dingley's body was finally found, the local authorities started piecing together the puzzle. Their conclusions suggested her demise was likely accidental. The prevailing theory was that Dingley lost her footing and plunged down a rocky, inhospitable slope close to the summit of Pic de la Glire mountain. But as Christophe Amonzetegai, the public prosecutor on the case, told the press, the investigation was far from straightforward. With factors like the height of the fall and the state of her remains to consider, it's literally like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube in the dark. Amonzetegai dropped another bombshell. He suggested a potential shoe failure as the cause behind Dingley's tumble. Dingley was wearing a pair of worn La Sportiva hiking shoes rather than a Catula Microspikes traction system that she had with her. Mr. Amonzetegai said the shoes were worn after months of use, and clearly the soles were a bit smooth. His calculations led him to believe she fell a whopping 100 feet to meet her untimely end, But what about the skull piece that was found in a totally different spot? A Munzeta reckons it was probably scattered by the local wildlife after her death. It's a grim reminder of the harsh reality of nature. Dingley's discovery finally brought an end to a search operation that was nothing short of exhaustive. We're talking foot patrols covering every inch of the terrain, and helicopters sweeping from the skies. It was a full-court press. But it was Colgate who stood out in all of this. Described by LBT Global, a missing person charity that was aiding the family, he was a man on a mission, displaying a relentless effort to find his partner of 20 long years. A curious detail surfaced, though. The spot where Colgate found the body hadn't been covered yet by the French search crews, as per a report by the Times. At this time, LBT Global seemed to be leaning towards the idea that Dingley's death was a freak accident, given the location where she was found and some other breadcrumbs of evidence. It seems the most likely scenario. Further investigation turned up additional fragments of Dingley's bones spread out even lower down the mountain. In the late summer month of August 2021, the long-awaited autopsy report was finally completed and delivered. It had been a brutal process for the forensic pathologist, with difficulties due to the significant passage of time since the incident and the extensive damage it had caused. A Munzeta addressed the local news sources, breaking the silence and presenting the findings of the exhaustive study. The autopsy reveals there was a fall that resulted in several fractures and immediate death. These words, while straightforward and factual, carried the weight of finality, concluding a story that had been months in the telling. As he shared the results, a Munzeta emphasized the certainty of the autopsy's findings. Despite the intricate and complex conditions under which it was performed, the sequence of events that led to the tragic incident was finally becoming clearer, painting a picture of a sudden, heartbreaking accident that transpired amidst the beauty of the Pyrenees Mountains. Yes, it was most definitely a fall, he confirmed, emphasizing the certainty of the conclusion that had been reached. The word definitely hung in the air as the audience absorbed the news, marking a significant milestone in this tragic journey, closing the chapter on speculation and uncertainty, and providing a certain degree of closure. As the dust settled on this tragic mystery, Rhea Bryant, Dingley's mother, and Colgate, her longtime partner, gave a heartfelt statement. They expressed their grief, speaking of a woman whose smile could brighten up the gloomiest room. Their words were a poignant reminder that the glimmer of hope they'd clung onto, of seeing Esther's sunny smile, of holding her warm hand, of experiencing her uplifting presence once more, had now been utterly extinguished. Their loss was so deep, so profound, that words seemed to fail them. It's an emotional blow that's literally too overwhelming to put into words. Respect the power and unpredictability of nature, regardless of your experience level. Preparation, good decisions, and awareness of your own limits are key. Stay safe.